I'm just putting the final finish on the new sternpost that I made. Now, in this episode, not only are we going to install this sternpost, but also assemble and install all of the finished bulkheads. In addition, we're going to ferry them out and hopefully get the beginnings of some planks on the boat. But first, let me show you why and how I decided to change out the sternpost. So in past videos, I have had several comments about viewers thinking that the ash sternpost that I had made was not strong enough. Well, I can assure you that you can see I can put all of my weight on this piece of ash and it is perfectly strong. Now, the reason that I've decided to change it is because this piece of ash is not from the reclaim materials from Victoria or from any of the stock that Steve had cut from his property. So what I've decided to do is to use one of the knees from Victoria. So you can see I've got a pretty nice collection of some grown knees from Victoria. Now, a grown knee is where the annual rings run with a curve that you can make a knee out of and that it becomes quite strong. So what I need is a 1-inch thick board for the sternpost, and though this is plenty thick enough, if I cut in at 1 inch, I'll run right into the middle of one of these holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to resaw a 3/4 inch piece off that side and a 3/4 inch piece off that side, and then mill them down and glue them together so that I have the 1 inch size that I need for my sternpost. Even though the sternpost won't be seen easily, I should do as I say. If you're going to make it beautiful. Thanks, viewers. I began putting a finish on the bulkheads and transom, as it was easier to do that out of the boat. I began with the transom. If you'll remember from episode 9, there were 2 holes in the reclaimed mahogany. I filled the holes with some thickened epoxy so that the center spur of a Forstner bit would have a spot to start. After drilling the 5/8 inch holes, I cut some plugs out of some scrap from the same mahogany. I started with a primer coat of epoxy on the 4 aft bulkheads and the transom. In the same day, I put 3 coats of epoxy on all 3 panels. For the transom, I prepared some peel ply for the final coat. I did not put it on the 4 bulkhead or the aft bulkhead because I didn't want the grooves to fill with epoxy. My first time using peel ply, I had an issue with the creases transferring as ridges in the epoxy surface. I found that I could iron them out by putting an iron on a synthetic setting. I found with a large surface like the transom, it was very difficult to get the peel ply laid on there evenly, single-handedly. So the next time I'm going to enlist some help so they can get the peel ply laid on there in a more even fashion. However, with a little perseverance, I did manage to get most of all of the air bubbles out. I then put a fill coat on, making sure that I put it on in a nice even layer. So this is the back side of the transom, and I've already got about 3 coats of Lust varnish on here on top of the epoxy. Now this is where the stern knee post will be attached right here. So what I want to do is to get a nice finish coat on this because it's going to be a little harder to get to once it's in the boat. So one of the first things I do for the final coat is I take a single edge razor blade like this and I scrape it back and forth over this like so. So I let my hand, it flips one way and then the other. And so by doing that, any little high spots, it will take them off. It really gets it nice and smooth. That way if a little piece of dust or something falls in there, I can get that out. So after I do that, then I follow it up with some 220 grit sandpaper. After I finished the transom, the fore and aft bulkhead, I then mixed up some Total Protect, which is a 2-part epoxy primer for the dagger board sides and the center seat bulkheads. This primer is good for above and below the waterline. So this is particularly good for this daggerboard trunk because it will be in a very wet environment. I used some Total Bilge, which is an epoxy paint, to paint the inside of the daggerboard trunk. I've got all of my parts all prepared for assembly now. So the first thing I'm going to do is to reinstall these little spacers. So I'm all ready to go here, and I've got some 3M 5200 here for my adhesive. So I've got my pieces laid out, so it's just a matter of caulking. Well, the next bulkhead is the fore bulkhead, and on the back side of it, I put a coat of the epoxy bilge paint on there, mainly because this will be a flotation chamber and you will never see it. So we'll get this centered here. Now I'm going to drill a hole in here and put a screw into the stem. The last screw, I always use a beeswax toilet ring to wax my screws, and by doing that, one, the screw is lubricated and it goes in easily, and also it helps waterproof the hole. Well, now that all of the bulkheads are in, I can now start to ferry them out, and then we can get some planks on the boat. Well, I'm pretty happy with the way it all fares out now. Now remember that the bulkheads stay in the boat, so that's really the part that I wanted to fare there. The mold station comes out, so this is the part that was important to get fared properly. So the next step now is to clean it up real well, get all the dust off it, and some blue tape on all of the mold stations that are going to come out of the boat. So I found that one of the important things is to make sure you get all of the dust off of the molds. And putting the tape on, I have this J roller that is actually for putting down laminates, but it's really been beneficial to use it to roll the tape on there, because it really pushes it in to that MDF. Then I can just go along and pinch it. And then this will really push that on there nicely. So I've made up these little blocks here that I'm putting right at the shear line so the plank can sit on there, and that way I don't have to look down and see if I've lined up with the line. So all of these little blocks here will go on with a couple of screws. I'm pretty happy with all of it set up now. So the next thing is to get a couple of really nice strips so that we can use those for the shear strike. Now before I can put a shear strike on there, I need to take the plank and I need to cut it down so that I have a nice 90-degree surface of the shear strike. So I took them over to the table saw and I cut 2 strips down so that they are about 7/8 of an inch wide. I'm going to start at the back and work forward here. I offered up a plank to the starboard side as well, and it fared out just as nicely as it did here on the port side. And I could tell that I've got a really nice fair curve of the shear strike. So I feel like I'm in pretty great shape now for getting started planking Victoria. And of course, we'll do all of that in the next episode. So as always, thanks for watching, and remember, if you're going to make it beautiful.